Perfect. Okay. So I'm just going to have you introduce yourself and say where we are and how you got to the space.
Okay, so my name's Taylor. My pronouns are she and they, and we're currently sitting on the second floor of the bookstore at Red Emma's Bookstore Coffee House on 3128 Greenmount.
Awesome. Could you talk a little bit about Red Emma's, what kind of space it is, what you guys do here?
Yeah, Red Emma's it's a unique space because it is both a bookstore, so a radical bookstore. We have, I think, 14,000 and some change books that range everywhere from like anthropological literature, philosophy, but also some radical texts that you won't necessarily find at Barnes & Noble or other bookstores, kids' books, zines. We're also a vegan restaurant and coffee shop. So we have like a full menu, a full coffee bar available all day, a full bar, and we host events here, free and open to the community almost every night. So we're kind of a combination of like a bookstore, we have food stuff going on, we have events, things happening, and we also are home to the Baltimore Free School downstairs, which is a space, a community space where people can host classes, workshops, private retreats for their organizations, strategy meetings for like local, mutual aid groups, organizing groups to kind of get together. So we do a lot of things at once.
Awesome. How did you find your way to Red Emma's?
Well, when I moved after graduating college in 2019, in the fall, I moved to Baltimore for the first time, and I immediately looked for like, where are the people that share my political views, where is a space to get good coffee, where is a space to attend really compelling book events. I immediately became a regular at Red Emma's, and at the time I wanted to get more into cooking and go to culinary school, but a few people told me who are chefs, like, don't go to culinary school, just get a job in a kitchen and learn how to cook for free and get paid for it, and develop a community that way. So when Red Emma's was hiring back in the fall of 2019 into the spring of 2020, I started working in the kitchen. And then the pandemic happened and everything shut down. So I ended up going off to grad school. And when I came back in 2022, just on a health leave from grad school, Red Emma's had just opened bought this bookstore and the restaurant buildings, and we're looking for like good people to come back to help them get started in the new space. So I joined the collective, and I've been here ever since, so about 3 years.
Awesome. So talk to me a little bit more about the collective and kind of the model on which Red Emma's operates.
Yeah, so Red Emma's started 20 years ago as like a group of volunteers who were really passionate about getting people like radical information and helping distribute just ideas to the public. But it turns out it's very hard to run a volunteer-run bookstore and be able to pay for the cost of overhead. And so they switched into a model of food and books. And then they realized, let's start a worker cooperative where we can manage ourselves, pay ourselves, and do something a little different than like a traditional boss and employees model. So there's about 14 worker owners. I'm one of them. And we meet as a collective monthly, but also certain departments like the books or the food side meet weekly, and we kind of figure out how to run the business ourselves. We divide labor, we divide tasks, we self-manage. So if like we want somebody to be doing something differently, we have to figure out how to have that direct communication, and instead of relying on like a CEO or management to make those decisions for us. So for me, I work across all three departments: the front of house, so like the bar and the coffee; back of house, the food and the restaurant side, and the books.
Wow.
So my week, part of a worker co-op, just looks like doing every different thing, learning different tasks, and also just like pitching in to make this thing work with a group of people committed to the same thing.
Wow, that's really cool. You talked about how you kind of moved to Baltimore after college, and then almost immediately found your way to Red Emma's initially. What was that move to Baltimore like, and how have you experienced the city over the years?
Yeah, so I initially, I got my first apartment in Charles Village ever. I'm from like the Northeast, and where I'm from, people aren't necessarily like friendly. It's where I was raised. There isn't a sense of community. There isn't a sense of like knowing your neighbors, sitting on porches and having conversations with people. And so when I moved to Baltimore and Charles Village specifically, like I was struck by the sense of people waving to you on the street, people helping you get the bus if the bus is going to pass you. And this is the first place I felt at home. And a lot of the people who also live in Baltimore and work here at Red Emma's, I think, being part of this community of workers has also made me feel like I'm part of something bigger. And I think Baltimore as a city, I mean, obviously we all know it gets a bad rep in the news and media, and of course, like racist myths about living in a historically black city pervade the discourse nationally, even like recently what, you know, Trump has said in the news. But living here day to day, I feel part of something that is bigger than myself, and it makes me want to live here and stay here and invest my time and resources.
I feel exactly the same way, so I completely understand where you're coming from. You were talking about the space you guys provide for like local organizers and mutual aid meetings. Could you talk a little bit about that? Any like experiences you've had? Any it can be any specific memories or encounters that have struck you, or how you've seen that shape over the years.
Yeah, I think a recent example was during the encampments that were happening across the country, but also here at Hopkins. You know, people who are sleeping overnight for an extended period of time need food, and they need stuff to keep going. And so a unique way that Red Emma's participated in supporting that was like, we would come in a few hours early and like help cook breakfast and just roll the breakfast over in a cart, or have people, you know, drive down the street with the breakfast for the encampments, using our kitchen equipment and using the food that we have here. I also remember when the pandemic happened, my first couple months as a worker at Red Emma's back in 2020, it was cool that the first response of the collective was like, okay, we're shutting down the restaurant. Let's create rations for all the workers and the employees of all the stock we have, so everybody can take home like all the food instead of throwing it away or, you know, figuring a way to like profitize this. It was really cool for me to like come home with a box of vegan, like fresh food and like these fancy oat milk supplies, because that was the value of the workers and that was the decision in the moment. But I also think being part of, like we had an event here where the some of the defendants from the Not Stop Cop City protests came and shared their story, and it was cool to see community members here who are concerned about the same thing happening in Baltimore get to learn from them and strategize right downstairs in the free school. So yeah, I've had a variety of experiences with like being part of organizations organizing here in this space to make things happen in Baltimore, but also seeing how being part of a worker cooperative can lend to other ways of interacting and supporting each other outside of this model of just like pure profit or, you know, controlling or managing other people. So a few cool experiences I've had.
Yeah, I was here for the Perfect Victims book launch.
Oh yes, I was there too.
For the packed. There was like, we were all sitting on top of each other.
Yes.
It was amazing. And I saw a lot of people from school here, and I came with people from school, and it was just really great. It's almost like spaces like this kind of like are a touch point for a side of Hopkins that is not the like mainstream experience of the school. And having a physical space like this and a community here almost grounds me, and I think a lot of people around me, in that it feels like real and possible that the things we're doing, there is a space for them, and just that like recognition and those resources and that acknowledgement from people whose work we admire, I think on a personal level it like goes a long way, because I'm like, this is important and it can be done. So I totally hear you on everything that you're saying. A couple more questions before we wrap up. if you want to talk a little bit more, and you completely don't have to, but about like Hopkins, because you're talking about like moving to Charles Village and this feeling of home and community that you get here, have you observed or experienced how Hopkins plays into that sense, or how it interfaces with the community? And is there anything about that experience that you would like to talk about?
I think initially moving to Charles Village, I was struck by the amount of like security guards on the street where I lived. I was struck by the sense of like a looming presence of always seeing shuttles, always seeing new buildings being built, always seeing Hopkins sponsored things. And living, where I went to college outside of Philadelphia, there's a similar dynamic with Philly universities like Drexel and UPenn, where they're just consuming the city and almost destroying a sense of this community, both physically, like taking away people's homes, taking away land, but also socially, imposing a sense of like security culture, imposing value, like capitalist values, colonial values. And here, we have some regulars, like there's a regular here that calls 32nd Street, like St. Paul, B City, he says, because there's all of these security guards that wear yellow and black uniforms and they swarm everywhere. So it's difficult to see an institution with so much power and money take away so much. It's also interesting to see and meet students who, like me, are against this and are trying to figure out ways to leverage their power and branch off and create community organizations, like redistribute resources through mutual aid. So it's kind of like, it's complicated because there's both things at play. There's very, like, I don't want to say the word evil, but like very harmful institutional power at play. And there's also individuals part of that institution who I've seen feed people, like defend against their defend their encampments, stand up against like anti-Palestine forces. And so holding both at once is hard, but I feel hopeful about the real like passion that I've seen in some people, just like willing to stand up and say the difficult thing and also take a hit from their university or from their employment if it matters, if it comes down to it.
Yeah. I like that you said like this looming presence, because when I was initially like conceptualizing this project, a phrase that kind of got stuck in my head that I kept coming back to is that all the spaces that I'm featuring are like very close to campus, because I wanted to pick places that were accessible to students, to like open up the city around them a bit. And the phrase I kept coming back to was like in the shadow of this giant, like all these spaces are kind of like in the shadow of this like big towering looming presence. Exactly. Another thing that you said, and that I want to kind of move to in like the final couple questions, is you said that you feel hopeful, and I want to ask, like, what is exciting you or interesting you about things that are happening in Baltimore right now? It's an exciting year for Baltimore, I think, and for like many reasons. And what is just like, as someone who kind of lives this life and thinks about things in this way, and devotes all your time and energy to trying to make that a reality, what is keeping you hopeful?
So what is keeping me hopeful is I'm thinking about the book Mutual Aid by Dean Spade, because I'm seeing, when we're living in crisis, when we're living in a time of genocide, a time of a literal hellscape in so many ways, I'm seeing so many examples of people turning towards each other and literally meeting people's needs on the ground in real time. So a lot of my work at Red Emma's here, and I'm grateful to be part of a worker co-op that supports me to do this, is like a lot of the mutual aid efforts here. So we have, so like in the past 3 years working here, I've distributed through getting grants and through friendly anonymous people working at various places that secretly give me their stock to give away, 30,000 masks, thousands of condoms, thousands of menstrual products, thousands of COVID tests, for example. We have the Waverly Community Fridge where volunteers who might be retired or just devastated about what's happening politically and globally are cooking meals and dropping them off on a daily and weekly basis. So what makes me hopeful is people are getting fed. People are getting support when they're in crisis. We're able to give people menstrual supplies if they don't have any. We're able to distribute Plan B to people who might not be able to afford $50 to buy one. We have a pay it forward system where people can access items from our menu and not have to pay for it because somebody else paid for it for them. Mm-hmm. I'm part of group chats of queer people who give people rides to the hospital and their doctor's appointments if they ask for it, or give away free stuff, help people get to access therapists or recommend good doctors. There's so many examples in my daily life of people investing their time in just getting people what they need, and I get to do that a lot here at Red Emma's. Mm-hmm. So it makes me hopeful to know part of my job is showing up for people that live in this community and knowing that the mutual aid is the people that I'm supporting will support me and will look out for me and will look out for Red Emma's. And so keeping that relationship going and seeing so many examples of other relationships in process, I think keeps me hopeful.
I think I needed to hear that today. That's great. Is there anything else you would like to add or say, or anything you think I missed that you want to plug, or anything, any way that people can support?
Yeah, I would say living under capitalism is tricky because our model is a business model. On one hand, we have to keep the lights on. We have to keep the bathrooms public and available to everyone. We have to pay for the rising costs of vegan food and produce. The costs are astronomical. Our heat and our air conditioning, it's very expensive. Yes. While at the same time, we're providing a third space, a space where people don't actually have to pay for anything to be in here and organize and grow and learn. That's not really accessible in a lot of places in Baltimore. Yep. So if you have, my plug would be number one, if you have a book that you need to buy for class, and you could buy it on Amazon for $3 cheaper, but you can come here and get it, I would say come here. It helps us keep the lights on. If you have a student group and you have a budget, let's say of X amount of dollars that you could spend renting a space and paying for catering, here's a great place to do it. Mm-hmm. I think shuffling money from big institutions to places like this that could use it for good is very important. And then number three, think of how you can redistribute your resources whenever you have them. If you have extra dining dollars or swipes and you have time to drop off some snacks here in the fridge, people will take it immediately. You'll be gone the same day. So help support us. Know that we are aware that we're toting this complicated line of running a business and trying to be profitable to stay open and keep providing these services, but also remaining a space that's aligning with our values and showing up for people here that live around here, and redistributing your time and energy and resources when you can, and get creative about it, I would say.
Yeah. Thank you so much. That's basically all I have. Yeah, this was great.